Would you like to have an examination from a hold
No.
on? What now?
No.
Wait, from a proctologist.
No, definitely no. Especially some random proctologist, not even my own.
Oh, you tickled me
Jim's
there.
on mute.
I'm sorry, you tickled me there. I was joking. No, would you like to have an examination of AEW attendance figures and or percentages from an actual data scientist? Is the question I was going to ask before you put your own period in on it and answered me too quickly. Although, what type of examinations have you had? Are you up to date on all your shots?
Based on OSHA rules, I don't think I have to answer that. I don't think you're allowed to ask me that either.
Well,
can I speak to your supervisor?
I have none. That's why I turned out this way.
Oh, the lawsuit just got bigger.
Yeah, well, there you go. And by the way, who's OSHA? Isn't he fucking Ice Cube's son?
She looks cute, but she just causes trouble.
OSHA's son?
OSHA is a girl's name, not a man's name.
Oh, I thought it was OSHA Jackson.
Who?
O'Shea.
O'Shea Jackson.
Oh.
Where the hell is your mind going? You threw me off.
You keep changing your stories. Anyway, from James, I won't give his last name in case he wants to seek employment anywhere else in the future.
In case he has friends or family.
Family, people he cares about. But he did say hello to you and me. He's a longtime listener, member of the cult. And one of his favorite parts of the shows are the discussions around the viewership for and attendance of AEW programs, with the WrestleTix quotes, reports, etc. Because he's a data scientist and he has fun with numbers. And he sent me a sheet, and goddamn it, I wish there's no way I could even read this and make sense. It's just lines and lines of the shows and how much the building holds, what they actually set it up for when AEW was there, how many tickets they distributed, how many empty seats they had, percentage of venue empty. It's goddamn amazing. You know, there's these people that have these ability to do these things with these numbers. Goddamn, they ought to charge more money for their work. I got this for free. But anyway, there's 4 statistics I would like to bring up to you in this report that's been done here. Would you like to hear them, Brian?
Yes, and again, we don't know if James, we don't know if that's his real name, and we also don't know if he has any of the qualifications truly to be doing this.
No, he's just gone. He's from public documentation, from WrestleTix, from things that we have read and that people have been reported in the buildings. He's done all the adding and the subtracting and the gazentas, you know. 2 goes into 6 3 times, 2 goes into 8 4 times, and he's figured all these things up. The average building capacity of the arenas that AEW has run for Dynamite in 2024, just since January 1st, is 12,680 seats. That means that the arenas that they've done their Dynamite tapings in, if you open the full seating capacity of that arena for any event that fills it up, and you average that out, 12,680. That's some pretty big buildings.
You know, I actually thought it would have been bigger. I actually thought they were running, on average, bigger buildings, but that's not even as crazy as I thought it was going to be.
See, now I will show you, for example, when they were at the Coca-Cola Coliseum in Toronto, it holds 7,700.
The Coca-Cola Coliseum?
And when they were in Daly's Place in Jacksonville, that only holds 5,500 no matter what you do with it. And there was the UNO Lakefront Arena in New Orleans, my old hometown, 8,700. That's so. While they were in the TD Garden in Boston at 19,580, or the Prudential Center at 16,000, or the Footprint Center in Phoenix at 18,000. There also the Indiana Farmers Coliseum. Remember we talked about that? They were in the 90-year-old ABA building. That's 6,800. Huh. Of course, now, honestly, these are the listed capacities for arenas. But as you know, if you put seats on the floor for wrestling, you can get more in. So for wrestling, you could do over, and Bruiser used to over 8,000 for wrestling. So this is even worse than we thought, but let's continue on. The average building capacity, as I mentioned, 12,680 seats. The average number of empty seats for AEW Dynamite so far in 2024, based on the capacity of the arenas they have run, average number of empty seats, 10,235 seats. This translates to an average building being 72.47% empty. Now you say, well, how can that be? Because it looks like there's people there. Well, if you opened up the entire building, that's what we're talking about. But as we know, AEW shrinks it down a little bit to the sections that they can shoot that'll be on camera, and they tarp off things and blah, 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 right? So the average setup, the average building capacity may be 12,680, but the average setup for these buildings is 3,350. That's what they're actually, no, so obviously they're setting up a 20,000 seat building for a little bit more. But yes, that's the average setup, no matter what size the building. And one more statistic, and then I will open the floor to your comments. The average tickets distributed, which are sold or given away for promotion, according to WrestleTix, is $24.45, which means there's an average of 1,086 tickets left unsold per show, even with the smaller setups. So that means basically the average then, down here on the chart here, of percent of venue empty is almost 80%. And the worst one, hold on, I'll give you one more, Brian, because this is fun. When they went to the BOK Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma, I don't know who Bach is or what he had to do with it. The building capacity was 19,199. They distributed 1,593 tickets. That means the building was 91.70% empty. Your thoughts?
You know, even if we ignore all the booking problems, and it's hard to completely ignore them because they're a big part of why people aren't coming out. The problems with the way they've handled the scheduling of live events has been going back for a long time. This was a Raphael Morphy era problem, where they would run nonstop in Texas, nonstop in California, nonstop in Canada, nonstop in the Northeast, and then burn out every market. There are very few markets, if any, that AEW returns to and the crowd goes up. WWE right now is as hot as they get. They're selling out shows with like no lineup. You know, what are the matches on Raw? You don't know. You don't care. They can't get people in the door. The booking is one thing. They burned out markets, I think, is another.
Well, what are they coming back with that is in any way superior to whatever they would have presented a year or 2 years ago at a live event or a TV taping, whatever?
You see, they had the wrestlers they had, but they were also the fresh thing. They were getting publicity for being the fresh thing. If there was ever a time for someone to check out something different, even if they didn't have issues with WWE, that was the time. That was the publicity. Now they are just there. And again, this is 2 weeks. AEW has done what for them are hot angles. The attack of Tony Khan, the attack of Kenny Omega. Is anyone talking about it? Is anyone talking about it? No, instead we're talking about a B pay-per-view that took place in France before fans that like to sing. Like, that's the story, not Kenny Omega potentially having his guts destroyed.
Yeah.
And the booking's a problem. The live event strategy is a problem. I almost think, and there's no easy way to do it, and I'm, again, not a producer, for them at least. But I almost feel like you show in really small places and make every place feel local so that you're watching. You should make it almost like, that was one of the things with Nitro that seems stupid but worked, like the Nitro parties where everyone wanted to participate. Make it more exclusive, make it smaller, make it feel like each town that you're in, and then grow again. Because instead they're running these big buildings, just waiting to fill them up again? Ever?
Well,
I mean, I say again.
I was about to say, hold on there, cowboy. Yes, they drew 80,000 people at Wembley, or 70,000, or 85,000, or whatever the goddamn number.
The turnstile count, you got to remember.
Where, well, they're gonna just do, a little over half of that again this year, and they've drawn some big crowds. But let's face it, in the last year, right? Their business, their live ticket sales have not dropped 75%, or even if they're not doing a half of what they did. They were in big buildings last year and year before that were too big. Because Tony, I guess, is convinced and set down at the start that they were going to fill them up. So they just, except for the pandemic, obviously, that's what they've been doing. And they ain't been filling them up. That's what, like you said, are they just wishing? But you could have made a course correction from last year. Arenas book in advance, but not that far that you can't fucking change something you're going to do a year from now. And they've had this warning for a while, and now they're piss holes in a snowbank. So I don't know what the fuck they're thinking. Or are they thinking?
I think they're thinking, but maybe it's the wrong thinkers. Maybe it's the wrong thinkers.
You mean they're thinkers or stinkers?
Their thinkers could be stinkers.
And they come up with clinkers?
And they come up with clinkers.
Well,
like Claude Cooper.
Hey, don't you say a word about Claude Cooper, because that goddamn cleaning woman, Clara Clifford, she's the one that started that whole thing, making those accusations that kleptomaniac Claude Cooper from Cleveland is the one who copped the clean copper clappers kept in the closet.
See, that's something the listeners may not know. It's kind of like if you say Beetlejuice, if you just say the name, and I won't say it again, Jim goes into the whole routine.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. If I ever find kleptomaniac Claude Cooper from Cleveland and copped my clean copper clappers that were kept in the closet, I'll clobber him.
Amazing.